At just 17, she thought the world had finished with her. Then a stray dog walked out of the darkness and saved her from herself. It started with the rain, not just a drizzle. Not that soft, romantic kind of rain you see in movies. This was a heavy, punishing, relentless downpour that drenched everything it touched, cold, merciless, like the sky itself had given up. The streets of downtown Seattle were half empty. People hurried past in hooded jackets, ducking under awnings and umbrellas, pretending not to see what they didn't want to see. The rain made it easier. It blurred the lines between everything light and shadow, warmth and cold, belonging and exile. Claire Bennett sat hunched on a bench in a small public park near the edge of the city's industrial district. Her hoodie was soaked through, her jeans clung to her legs, her sneakers squelched when she shifted her weight. But she didn't care. Her phone had died hours ago. Her stomach growled beneath her soaked sweatshirt. Her entire body trembled not just from the cold, but from the trauma of the last 12 hours. She was 17 and completely alone. The fight had started over something small. It always did. Dishes in the sink, clothes on the floor, the tone of her voice. Her stepfather's temper had been getting worse lately, and her mother. Well, her mother had learned to survive by keeping quiet. Claire didn't keep quiet. Not anymore. She had stood up, answered back, told him to stop yelling, stop threatening, stop pretending this was love. And that's when it happened. The words that burned more than any slap: "If you don't like the rules in this house, get out." The front door slammed behind her. It was midnight. She had no money, no friends she could call at that hour, no plan. Only a battered backpack with a phone at 3%, a cracked charger, 2 shirts, and the only picture she had of her real dad. And now she was here miles away from everything familiar, on a park bench under a dying streetlight, with rain pouring down like it wanted to wash her off the face of the earth. She thought about going back, knocking, apologizing. Maybe they'd let her in. Maybe. But something inside her, something deeper than pride, said no. This wasn't her fault. She just didn't belong anywhere. And that's when she heard it. At first, she thought it was the wind. But then it came again, soft, hesitant footsteps. A shuffle on wet concrete. Something moving through the shadows near the trash bins behind the old coffee shop across the street. She sat up, heart pounding. Then, out of the shadows, it emerged. A dog. It moved slowly, limping slightly on one paw. Its fur was matted, drenched, and caked with mud. One ear hung awkwardly, like it had been torn or broken long ago. It looked thin ribs visible, tail low, eyes wide and uncertain. But what struck Claire most weren't the dog's wounds. It was his eyes. They were deep, sad, tired, the kind of eyes that had seen more than they should, eyes that had waited too long for someone to care. They locked eyes across the rain-slicked sidewalk. The dog froze. Claire didn't move. Seconds passed like hours. Then slowly, cautiously, the dog stepped forward, one paw at a time, never looking away. Claire felt her breath catch. He wasn't dangerous. He wasn't begging. He was watching her, reading her, as if he somehow understood, as if he recognized something in her. She whispered, barely audible under the storm, "You lost too?" The dog came closer, sat down in front of her. His fur dripped rain onto the pavement. His ears twitched. But he didn't blink. And for the first time that night, Claire exhaled, not in relief, but in surrender. She leaned forward, tears mixing with rain, and said, "You don't have anyone either, do you?" No bark, no whimper, just presence. And somehow, that was enough. The minutes blurred. Claire didn't move. Neither did he. She didn't know his name, or where he came from, or how long he'd been surviving out here alone. But in that moment, it didn't matter. He was there. And in a world that had just spat her out, that meant everything. Imagine if this was you. 17, soaked, forgotten. And then this moment, this creature, this fragile thread of connection, pulling you back from the edge. Claire eventually unzipped her backpack and pulled out the half-eaten granola bar she had stuffed in the side pocket earlier that day. She broke it in half, held it out, palm up. The dog didn't lunge, didn't snatch. He took a careful step forward, sniffed gently, and then delicately accepted the food from her hand. That was it. The moment everything shifted, she smiled, a real one. The first in days. And then she did something unexpected. She whispered, "I'm going to call you Ash." The name came out of nowhere, but it felt right, like a spark left over after a fire. Like something broken that refused to go out. Ash blinked, then sat closer to her feet. And Claire rested her hand on his damp fur. In the silence, her thoughts returned. The fear, the shame, the uncertainty of tomorrow. But now, there was something else, too. A pulse, a presence. A strange kind of comfort, like maybe, just maybe, the universe hadn't fully given up on her. Not yet. That night, Claire didn't find shelter. She didn't find warmth. But she found Ash. And Ash found her. Two strays in the rain. Two stories without endings. Two broken things that had, by pure accident or design, collided at just the right moment. Can you believe this? That a dying dog and a discarded girl could find each other in the dark and begin to rebuild something neither of them knew they had lost? This wasn't the end of her story. It was just the beginning. The morning after wasn't morning at all. It was gray, blurred, cold. Claire hadn't slept. Not really. The bench offered no comfort. The rain had stopped, but left a bone-deep chill behind. And every sound in the city, from passing cars to sirens in the distance, felt like a warning. But Ash was still there, curled near her feet, his body rising and falling with slow, steady breaths. Despite the wet ground, despite the noise, despite the hunger in his belly, he had stayed. That meant more than anything she could have said out loud. They moved through the city like shadows. Claire kept her hood up, her eyes down, one hand always resting on Ash's back. He didn't need a leash. He followed her like he'd known her for years. At a gas station convenience store, she lingered by the trash bins, waiting until the clerk turned away. Then she reached in, fast, grabbing a half-eaten sandwich still in its wrapper. Ash watched. She split it, gave him the bigger half. At a public restroom, she washed her face in cold water, holding Ash's leash looped around her wrist with a string she found. He waited patiently outside the stall, head tilted, eyes alert. They weren't a girl and a dog anymore. They were a team. At first week blurred into one long test of will. Sleeping in alleyways. Hiding behind dumpsters. Sitting for hours in public parks, pretending to read so security wouldn't ask her to leave. Getting food when and where she could, mostly scraps. Sometimes small kindnesses from strangers who didn't ask questions. But most people, they didn't look at her. Or worse, they looked straight through her. A woman walked past one afternoon in a tailored blazer and heels, talking on her phone about yoga and protein shakes. She nearly stepped on Ash, didn't even flinch. Another man stared at her while she tried to eat a day-old muffin near the bus stop, not with sympathy, but with something close to disgust. She felt dirty, unwanted, less than human. And yet, Ash never once looked at her like that. To him, she was enough. Just Claire, and that was everything. On the sixth night, something shifted. They found a dry patch beneath a highway overpass, a little alcove where a broken mattress had been dumped. There were cigarette butts, old blankets, and someone had spray painted a mural of an angel with no face on the concrete wall. Claire laid down carefully, pulling her backpack close and letting Ash curl up beside her. For a moment, she looked up at the city lights filtering through the cracks in the bridge. "I used to think I'd be something by now," she whispered. Ash rested his chin on her arm. "Not famous or rich. Just not this." A pause. Silence. "You ever wonder what you were supposed to be, Ash?" He didn't answer. Of course not. But the way he sighed, the way his eyes slowly closed, it felt like he knew exactly what she meant. What would you do in her place? 17. Sleeping on concrete. Sharing your dinner with a dog. Wondering if anyone will ever say your name again with kindness. The next morning, Claire woke to barking. Not Ash's. Another dog, bigger, louder, was circling nearby. Homeless, angry, thin. Ash jumped up, placing himself between Claire and the noise. His body tensed. Claire stood quickly, heart racing, not knowing what to do. The other dog lunged. Ash growled. Claire shouted, and just as fast as it started, it was over. The other dog ran off. Ash whimpered, limping slightly. He had a scratch across his side. Claire fell to her knees. "Oh my God, no, 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 stay still. Ash, please." She pulled off her sweatshirt, tore the hem, and pressed it against the wound. Ash didn't flinch. He just looked at her, calm, trusting. "You protected me," she whispered. "I'll protect you now." That moment changed everything, because it wasn't just survival anymore. It was responsibility. It was love. That afternoon, Claire walked into a veterinary clinic. She didn't have money, but she had eyes full of desperation and a bleeding dog in her arms. The woman at the desk looked up, startled. Claire didn't speak at first. Then, softly, "Please, I don't want anything for me. Just him." Silence. The woman hesitated, looked toward the back room, then at Claire again. Finally, she nodded. They treated Ash, cleaned the wound, gave him something for the pain. They didn't ask questions. Or maybe they saw enough in Claire's face that they didn't need to. As they walked out, the receptionist handed Claire a small plastic bag. "There's dog food in here, some bandages, and a towel. Keep him dry, okay?" Claire nodded, tears stinging her eyes. "Thank you. I won't forget this." "Take care of each other," the woman said. That night, they slept beneath a canopy of trees near the waterfront, wrapped in the towel and blankets they'd found. Ash was already healing. Claire wasn't, not yet. But for the first time, she thought maybe healing was possible. This moment changed everything. Because when you're seen, truly seen, even just once, it plants something inside you. A reason to keep walking. A reason to hope. One evening, about 2 weeks after the first night, Claire saw her reflection in a storefront window. She barely recognized herself. Thinner, paler, stronger somehow. And behind her, Ash alert, alive, tail wagging as they walked side by side. She smiled. We made it another day. That had become their motto. Not dreams, not goals, just this one more day. But something else was brewing inside her. A spark, a voice that said, "This can't be it. There's got to be more." She started picking up trash in the parks they visited, cleaning after Ash, smiling at people who passed by even when they didn't smile back. She started to matter, even if just to herself. And one afternoon, while sketching with a broken pencil she'd found, sitting on the sidewalk near Pike Place, a woman in her 50s stopped and watched. "You drew this?" Claire looked up, startled. "Yeah, it's just something I do." The woman nodded. "It's good. Real good." She handed Claire a card. "There's a shelter 3 blocks from here. They help girls your age. Art therapy, food, beds. It's not perfect. But it's safe. You might want to check it out." Claire stared at the card, then at Ash, then back at the woman. She didn't know what to say, so she just whispered, "Thank you." She didn't go that night, but she kept the card. And for the first time in weeks, she thought about tomorrow. Can you feel that? That tiny shift? That almost invisible moment where survival begins to turn into something else? Something bigger? Claire had no idea where life would lead next. But something had changed. Ash had protected her body. Now, he had started healing her soul. Claire stood at the corner of 4th and Cherry Street, staring at the address on the warm card in her hand. The shelter. A small brick building tucked between a liquor store and an old bookstore. Faded white paint, rust on the metal gate. A modest sign above the door that read Harbor House. It didn't look like much, but right now, it looked like everything. Ash stood beside her, tail still, eyes locked on hers, as if waiting for her to decide who she was going to be today. She had passed this door 3 times in the last week, always stopping, always hesitating. She wasn't afraid of rejection. She was afraid of hope, because hope required trust, and trust had cost her too much already. The 4th time she walked in. Her heart pounded in her chest like a war drum. Ash followed quietly, close to her leg. Inside was warmer than she expected. Dim lights, old couches, the faint smell of coffee and soap. A woman in her 40s looked up from behind a desk. Her name tag read Marta. She smiled gently. "Hi, first time here?" Claire nodded, voice caught in her throat. Marta looked at Ash. "We don't usually allow dogs, but let me make a call." She disappeared into the back. Claire stood frozen, clutching the strap of her backpack. She wanted to run, wanted to bolt back into the familiar chaos of the streets. But Ash nudged her hand with his nose. "Stay." Marta returned 10 minutes later. "We'll figure something out. We've got a small storage room with a heater. Not ideal, but you can both stay tonight. Together." Claire's legs almost gave out. Not from exhaustion, from relief. They showed her to a small room in the back, clean, with a mattress on the floor, a warm blanket, and a bowl of water for Ash. She sat down slowly, took a deep breath. For the first time in nearly a month, she wasn't outside. She wasn't exposed. She was inside, and that changed everything. Imagine going so long without a roof. That silence feels strange. That softness makes you nervous. That kindness feels dangerous. The next morning, Claire showered for the first time in weeks. She stared at her reflection in the mirror, wet hair, pale skin, circles under her eyes. But she was there, still standing, still her. She wrapped herself in the oversized t-shirt they gave her, tied the drawstring pants twice, and returned to her room. Ash wagged his tail softly as she entered, his nose twitching at her new scent. She laughed a quiet, startled laugh. "Don't get used to this. I'm not staying." But deep down, part of her already wanted to. Over the next few days, things began to shift. Marta offered her a spot in the shelter's daily group sessions, mostly young women, some older, all carrying different kinds of hurt. Claire sat in the back at first. She didn't speak, didn't make eye contact, didn't cry, but she listened. One girl talked about being trafficked, another about escaping a violent foster home. One had slept in a tent for 2 years before finding this place. Their voices cracked, their hands trembled, but they were there, alive, trying. And for the first time, Claire didn't feel so different. Marta found out Claire could draw. She asked to see one of her sketches. Claire hesitated, then handed over a wrinkled notebook with pages of Ash sleeping, alert, limping, healing. Marta flipped slowly through the pages. "You have something here," she said. You see things people miss. Claire shrugged. It's just lines. No, Marta said, smiling. It's vision. That word stuck with her. Vision, not a dream. Not a goal, a possibility. What would you do if someone told you your pain could become your purpose? If the thing that almost destroyed you could become your gift? 2 weeks passed. Then 3. Claire hadn't made any promises. She still didn't trust the word safe, but she wasn't running anymore. She started helping in the kitchen, peeling carrots, scrubbing pans, feeding Ash at the back door where no one complained. She read in the common room books about people who overcame impossible things. She began to sketch again, not just Ash, but people, places, faces from memory. Marta found her one evening working quietly at a desk. You know, she said, we partner with a local art program, a nonprofit. They run weekend workshops, scholarships too. No pressure, but you'd be a good fit. Claire stared at her. I'm not. I don't belong in places like that. Why not? Claire didn't answer. But the question haunted her. That weekend, she went. She brought her sketchbook, sat at the back of the room, said nothing. But the instructor, a tall woman with dyed blue hair and a laugh that echoed, saw her drawings and simply said, We'll find you supplies. Come back next Saturday. Claire didn't say yes, but she showed up anyway. Ash stayed with Marta during the sessions, always waiting at the gate when she returned, tail wagging, eyes bright, as if to say, see? I told you? One night, lying in bed with Ash curled against her legs, Claire whispered, maybe I don't have to disappear. Ash thumped his tail softly. Maybe I'm still here. And for the first time since that rainy night in the park, she believed it. Can you believe this? That a girl who had nothing, no home, no family, no plan could walk through one open door and begin again? That sometimes the bravest thing is to say yes, I'll try. The days inside Harbor House began to blend into a strange rhythm. Wake up, feed Ash, group sessions, art studio, dinners served by volunteers, evenings spent sketching faces she remembered from the street, the ones who looked away and the few who didn't. Claire never called it home, not out loud, but every time she returned to that small room where Ash waited, tail wagging, eyes shining, it felt like something close, safe. Marta noticed the changes first. Claire sat closer during sessions, asked questions, helped others. She started wearing color again, a pale blue hoodie from the donation bin, jeans that fit. Her hair was clean, her eyes clearer. One afternoon, Marta pulled her aside. There's a scholarship for the art program. It covers 2 months of intensive training workshops, studio space, supplies, and a spot in their youth showcase at the end. Claire blinked. Like, actual school? Not school, Marta smiled. Opportunity. Claire hesitated. I can't leave, Ash. Marta nodded slowly. They don't allow animals, but it's only during the day. He can stay here with me, I promise. Claire stared at the flyer that night. 2 months. It sounded like forever. She looked at Ash, curled on the blanket by the window, one ear twitching. What if I'm not good enough? Ash didn't answer, just wagged his tail once, gently. What if I fail? Still nothing, just trust in his eyes. What if I become someone I don't recognize? That question sat heavy. But beneath the fear, another thought whispered, what if I don't try at all? The next morning, Claire said yes. Orientation was overwhelming. The building smelled like paint and coffee. People her age talked about portfolios, exhibitions, artists she had never heard of. Their clothes were cool, their confidence louder than the studio music. Claire kept her sketchbook close, like armor. When her name was called, she stepped forward, heart pounding. Claire Bennett, mixed media, self-taught. A few students raised eyebrows. One nodded respectfully. The instructor, a tall man with glasses and tattoos, smiled. "Welcome, Claire. Show us what you've seen." Each day pushed her limits. Collage, ink, charcoal, abstract, life drawing, color theory. She failed. Often. Paint smudged, paper tore. Her lines looked juvenile compared to others. But she stayed. Each night, she returned to Harbor House. Ash would greet her at the door like a soldier returning home. They'd walk to the park, eat together, then collapse into sleep. "I missed you," she'd whisper. Ash never said it, but he never had to. 3 weeks in, something shifted. Her instructor pulled her aside. "Your work has pain," he said, "but it also has rhythm. Raw truth. Don't hide it. That's your voice." Claire nodded, not knowing how to answer. That night, she sketched Ash not lying down or resting, but standing tall, beneath the rain, a survivor. She titled it "The First Thing That Stayed." It made people cry. The following Monday, the program director visited her desk. "We have a donor interested in mentoring you. He saw your piece in last week's gallery and asked for your name." Claire froze. Mentoring? Portfolio building. Feedback. Maybe funding. I don't think I'm ready." He disagrees. Back at the shelter, Claire couldn't stop pacing. "Ash, this is big. Like, real. I'm scared." Ash stared, then walked over, nudged her sketchbook with his nose. "You think I should go?" Tail wag. The next day, she met the mentor, a quiet man in his 60s with silver hair and gentle hands. He had once worked with street artists in New York. "You draw with survival," he told her. "That's rare." Claire showed him her work, the dark, the hopeful, the unresolved. He looked at each piece carefully. "You have a story. When you're ready to tell it, people will listen." That night, something inside her cracked open, because for the first time, she wanted to tell it. But then came the letter. A prestigious art residency. 4 weeks, out of state. It included everything: travel, room, materials, and a condition: no pets allowed. Claire sat on the steps of Harbor House, letter in hand, tears welling. Ash lay beside her, head resting on her knee. "I don't know what to do." The words choked in her throat. "You're my anchor, my reason. I'm only standing because of you." He looked at her, still, steady, present. "But if I go, you can't come." That night, she cried into his fur. She remembered that first night on the bench, the cold, the hunger, the emptiness. And then, "Ash, you saved me," she whispered. "And now I have to walk a path you can't follow." He licked her cheek. "What would you do if the thing that pulled you out of the dark couldn't walk with you into the light?" The next morning, Claire packed. Ash watched quietly. She wrapped his blanket, his bowl, his favorite chewed-up toy. She wrote Marta a note. "He's not just a dog. He's a miracle. Please take care of him like he took care of me." She knelt beside him. "This isn't goodbye," she whispered. "It's a beginning." Ash wagged once, then leaned in, and for a long moment they didn't move. 2 souls. 1 breath. Claire boarded the bus with shaking hands. Ash watched from the sidewalk, beside Marta. He didn't bark, didn't run. He just watched, until the bus turned the corner and disappeared. Claire cried the whole way, but beneath the tears, there was something else. Not grief, not guilt, but growth. Sometimes the hardest goodbyes are the ones that make you become who you were meant to be. Claire didn't speak to anyone for the first 3 days. The residency campus sat on a wooded hillside, out Santa Rosa trees tall and quiet, air thick with fog in the mornings. Her room was clean and minimal: a single bed, a small desk, and wide windows that let in pale light. No Ash, no Marta, no voices she trusted, just silence, soft, overwhelming, echoing silence. The other artists were older, confident. Some had gallery shows, others published books. They talked about technique, theory, and critics over wine and crackers. Claire nodded politely when they spoke to her, then retreated to her room. At night, she would sit by the window with a pencil in hand and stare at the sky. She drew Ash from memory. Again and again. Ash waiting at the door. Ash under the rain. Ash walking beside her like a ghost she never wanted to forget. Each sketch felt like a conversation. A way to say I'm still here. Don't fade away. The first assignment of the residency was deceptively simple: create a piece that reflects what brought you here. Claire froze, because what had brought her here was not beauty or talent or technique. It was desperation. It was survival. It was a rainy night, a bench, and a dog. She tried to draw other things, trees, people, abstracts, but nothing felt honest. Everything she touched turned flat, emotionless, lifeless. She stared at blank canvases for hours, her hand frozen. She couldn't fake it. She didn't want to. On the fourth day, she skipped breakfast and walked into the woods behind the main building. She walked for over an hour until she found a quiet stream. She sat on a flat rock, opened her sketchpad, and whispered aloud, "I miss you." She meant Ash, but maybe she also meant the version of herself who had learned to fight for each day. The version that didn't care about critics or lighting or composition, just survival. Imagine this: you finally get the chance you prayed for, and suddenly it feels like a cage instead of freedom. That evening, she returned to the studio and did something reckless. She taped 9 blank pages together. She picked up a black marker, and she began to draw. Not carefully, not with control, but fast, raw, unfiltered. She started with the bench, the rain, the slumped figure of a girl, soaked, faceless. Then came Ash emerging from the shadows, angular and wild. Each panel bled into the next. Her mother's back as she walked away. The flashing neon signs of shelters. A hand reaching into a trash bin. Eyes watching. Eyes ignoring. Ash again, this time lying wounded. The shelter door opening. The studio light above her head. And finally, a new image. Claire herself, eyes closed, hand extended, and Ash mid-leap, just out of reach. She finished at 3:17 a meter, collapsed in the studio chair, and wept. The next morning, she found a note under her door. "I saw your piece. It's not perfect. It's not polished. It's real. Please submit it for the showcase. L." She didn't know who L was, but she clutched the note like a lifeline. Later that day, the director called a private meeting. "We want to feature your work, not just in the student gallery, but as part of the closing exhibition." Claire blinked. "That's not. I didn't plan exactly. That's why it works. People need to feel something again." She called Marta that night from the office phone. Ash barked in the background. Claire laughed through tears. "Tell him I'm coming back. And I'm bringing something I didn't have before." "Hope?" Marta asked. Claire smiled. "No, a voice. What would you do if someone finally listened? If your truth, your mess, was no longer something to hide, but something that others needed to see?" The final exhibition was held in a converted barn. Lights hung from the rafters. Strings of paper lanterns lit the pathway outside. A soft buzz of conversation filled the space. Claire stood in the back, her hands shaking. Her piece titled Between Us hung across one long wall. Viewers paused. Some whispered. Some cried. One woman held her chest and stood silently for over 5 minutes. Claire watched them, her heart pounding. They see it. They see me. Later, A man approached her mid-30s, clean suit, open expression. That piece. It reminded me of my sister. She ran away when we were kids. I never knew where she went. He swallowed hard. I think she needed someone like Ash. Claire didn't know what to say, so she nodded. We all do. She returned to Harbor House 2 days later. Ash jumped into her arms before she crossed the threshold. She cried into his fur. He wagged, spun, barked, and didn't leave her side for hours. Back in their room, Claire hung the note from Elle above her bed. And for the first time, she unpacked her bags slowly, because this time, she wasn't planning to leave again. Can you believe this? That a girl from a park bench could create something that moved strangers to tears? That the story she thought no one wanted was exactly what the world needed to hear? Claire had always assumed healing would feel like relief, but it didn't. It felt like pressure, like standing at the edge of something unknown, no longer drowning, but still afraid to swim. She returned to Harbor House as someone different. Her posture had changed, her gaze steadier. Even the way she moved through the hallways quiet, but no longer small. Ash followed her everywhere, as he always had, but now something was different. He wasn't guarding her anymore. He was walking beside her. Equal. Witness. Legacy. Marta noticed the shift immediately. "You've changed," she said one morning, handing Claire a cup of tea. Claire shrugged. "I just stopped hiding." "That's a big thing," Marta said. "Most people never do." Within a week, Claire began volunteering at the shelter full-time. She helped in the kitchen, ran errands, sat in on intake interviews with new girls, many of whom were barely younger than she had been when she arrived. Some came with bruises, some with silence, some with children. They looked at Claire with cautious curiosity. She didn't preach. She just listened. And slowly, they began to open up. Ash became a silent therapist. He'd lie near the girls during group sessions, his head on someone's knee, tail wagging lazily. One girl, 12 years old, mute from trauma, began speaking only when Ash was in the room. She'd whisper into his ear, smile when he licked her hand, draw pictures of him in crayon. Claire watched quietly and felt her chest ache with something she hadn't dared feel before: pride. Imagine this, the thing that once saved you, now saving others, and not because it was perfect, but because it simply stayed. One afternoon, Marta approached Claire with a folder. A local nonprofit is hosting a panel on youth homelessness. They want real stories, not statistics. I told them about you. Claire blinked. Me? Talk in front of people? You already do. Every time you show up here. Every time you listen. Claire hesitated. I'm not qualified. You survived. That's your qualification. That night, Claire sat in the garden behind the shelter, Ash at her feet, stars above her. She opened the folder. Panel event. Local school auditorium. 300 people expected. She swallowed hard. Ash, I don't know if I can do this. He looked up at her with the same steady gaze he had the night they met. No fear, only presence. The day of the event, Claire stood backstage, her hands trembling. She wore a black sweater, jeans, and a silver bracelet one of the girls had made for her. Her hair was tied back, her sketchbook tucked under her arm. Ash waited with Marta in the audience. She peeked through the curtain. People filled the seats: students, parents, owners. A microphone stood center stage. Her name was called. She walked out slowly, heartbeat in her throat. She didn't speak for the first 10 seconds, just looked at the faces. And then, quietly, she began, I'm not here to impress you. I'm here because I once believed my life didn't matter, and a dog changed my mind. For 20 minutes, she told her story. The rain, the bench, the silence, Ash, the shelter, the art, the moment her pain became purpose. She ended by holding up her sketchbook. This is my map. Every line, every shadow, it's where I've been. But I'm still drawing, and so are they. She pointed to the front row, where 3 girls from the shelter sat, eyes wide, hands clasped. So are we. The room erupted in applause. Not polite, real. Claire stepped off stage and into Marta's arms. Ash barked once loud, proud, certain. This moment changed everything. Because when you speak from the wound instead of the scar, you remind others they're not alone in the dark. Emails followed. Messages, invites, schools, youth centers, recovery groups. Everyone wanted to hear the girl with the voice. Claire accepted 2 events, then 3, then 6. She started sharing her art alongside her story. Started bringing Ash whenever possible. At every event, someone cried. Someone asked for help. Someone whispered, I thought it was just me. But the more she spoke, the more she remembered. The faces she left behind, the ones still on benches, still waiting, still cold. One evening, she sat with Marta and said, I think I want to do more. Not just speak. Build. Build what? Marta asked. Claire looked down at Ash. A place. Like this, but for girls who won't walk into a shelter. Because I wouldn't have. The idea seemed ridiculous at first. Claire had no money, no degree, no formal training, but what she had was momentum. A growing network of supporters, a body of work, and most of all, a story people didn't forget. She applied for a grant, a small one, just enough to launch workshops, art, journaling, basic care. No requirements, no ID, just space. She called it the Ash Project, because everyone deserves a second chance, even if they're on 4 legs. Can you believe this? That the same girl who once dug through trash was now building something that could feed others? That her pain didn't just end, it multiplied into something powerful, something healing, something bigger than herself? 1 year after the night she met Ash, Claire stood in a building that didn't exist back then. The walls were freshly painted, the windows let in morning sun. In the front room, a large bulletin board displayed sketches, poems, letters. At the top of the board, written in block letters, "This is a space for beginnings." This was the Ash Project Center. It had started with 3 girls. Now it held 12. 12 stories. 12 voices. 12 chances. Claire no longer slept at Harbor House. She had a small apartment near the center, 1 room, 1 sink, 2 plants she kept forgetting to water. Ash had his own bed now, near her art desk, though he still preferred curling up on her hoodie. Some mornings she woke up before the sun, just to watch him sleep. He had gray around his muzzle now, still alert, still gentle, still her anchor. She taught 2 workshops per week, storylines, a journaling and visual diary group for girls who didn't want to speak aloud yet. Survive, then create an open table where art supplies replaced formal therapy. Every session started the same way. Claire placed a blank page in front of them and said, you don't owe the world a polished version of yourself. Just an honest one. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, a knock came at the door. Claire answered, expecting a delivery. Instead, she froze. It was her mother. Her hair had more gray now. Her coat looked too big. Her eyes, once sharp and tired, were soft. She looked at Claire like someone who had read her story in the paper and couldn't believe the author was real. I didn't know where else to go, she said. Ash stood beside Claire, tense but silent. Claire stepped aside. They sat in the back room, 2 mugs between them, untouched. Silence stretched. Then her mother said, I read about this place. About him. She looked at Ash. I'm proud of you. Even if I don't know how to say it right. Claire stared at the table. I waited years to hear that. I waited years to say it. They didn't hug. Not then. But before she left, her mother placed something in Claire's hand, a photo Claire at 7 years old, holding a drawing of a horse. Her mother whispered, "You always drew before you spoke." And then she was gone. Claire sat on the steps outside, the rain falling lightly. Ash leaned against her. "We're not who we were," she whispered. "But we're not angry anymore." He sighed, content. And that was enough. Weeks later, Claire received an email from a national nonprofit. They were launching a campaign to combat youth homelessness. They wanted her to be the face. Claire hesitated. It meant cameras, exposure, labels. She wasn't just the girl with the dog anymore. She was a leader now, a voice. But could she be more? She sat with Marta that evening. "What if I'm not ready?" "You weren't ready the first night you stayed here," Marta replied. "I was terrified, and you stayed." Claire looked at Ash. "I don't want to lose what we've built. Then show others how to build too." The campaign launched 3 months later. Claire stood in front of a mural, her own painting arm outstretched, Ash beside her. The caption read, "Survival is only the first chapter. Let's help them write the rest." It went viral. Thousands of messages flooded in, donations, stories, people who saw themselves in her scars. One girl wrote, "I thought I was the only one who talked to a dog in the rain. Thank you for surviving. Now I want to too." Claire printed the message and pinned it above her desk, right beside the first drawing she ever made of Ash. She knew the center wouldn't last forever, but the message would, the ripple, the voice. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Claire took Ash for a walk. Same bench, same park, same corner of the city. She sat, looked around, and smiled. "Remember this spot?" Ash wagged, settled at her feet. She pulled out her notebook, and on the last page wrote, "This isn't the end of the story, just the end of hiding." Can you feel that? The full circle, from rain and silence to sun and story. Claire didn't save the world, but she saved one dog, then one girl, then another, and eventually herself. It was a cold October night, the kind that reminded Claire of the first one. The rain had come in thin sheets all day, tapping softly against the windows of the Ash Project Center. The girls had finished their art sessions early and gone to bed. The lights were low. The building hummed with quiet. Claire stayed late, cleaning brushes in the back room. Ash lay near the heater, head on his paws, watching her. He didn't move when she stepped past him, didn't raise his ears, didn't wag. She paused. Something was off. At first, she thought he was tired. He was getting older slower on walks, more time sleeping. But when she sat beside him, he didn't lift his head. His breathing was shallow, too shallow. And his eyes, they looked at her, not with pain, but with resignation. That terrified her more than anything. She wrapped him in a blanket, whispering his name over and over. "Ash, come on. Don't do this. Not now. Not like this." She called Marta. No answer. Called the emergency vet. Grabbed her bag, keys, umbrella. Cradled Ash in her arms like he was made of glass. And ran. Imagine this: the soul who saved you is now fading. And there's nothing you can do but keep whispering, "Please stay. Please stay." The clinic was 20 minutes away. It felt like 20 years. Claire spoke to him the whole ride. "Remember the bench? The storm? You picked me. You chose me. I was nobody. Just a girl with nothing. You made me somebody." Ash blinked slowly, then rested his head against her ribs. "You can't go. Not yet. Not until I say thank you the right way." They arrived. The vet staff moved quickly. took him from her arms, rushed into the back. Claire stood in the lobby, soaked, breathless, shaking. She sat, waited, prayed. 27 minutes passed. Then a nurse emerged. We stabilized him. Dehydration. Fatigue. His heart slowing, not failing, just aging. Claire nodded, tears falling freely. Can I see him? He's resting? You can stay. They brought her to a small recovery room. Ash lay on a padded blanket, hooked to fluids. His breathing more steady now. Claire knelt, ran her fingers through his fur. You scared me. He shifted slightly, just enough to touch her hand with his paw. You can't leave before I tell the world how much you mattered. She reached into her bag, pulled out her sketchbook. For the next hour, she drew him from every memory. Ash under the rain. Ash at the shelter door. Ash in a circle of girls at the center. Ash in front of a mural. Ash sleeping beside her on the coldest night. Ash becoming legend. She titled the page, "The Day the World Almost Lost Its Light." At dawn, a vet came in. He's doing better. He'll need rest, nutrition, less work. Claire smiled. He's earned that. He's special, the vet added. Not just any dog. Claire looked at Ash. He's not a dog, she whispered. He's a beginning. They returned home that afternoon. Ash walked slower. Claire carried his bowl to the sunniest corner of her apartment. She laid his blanket beside her bed. She adjusted her schedule, fewer events, more quiet. Every night, she sketched new pieces about rest, about aging, about legacy. The girls at the center noticed. Ash still came to sessions, but now they were the ones who curled beside him, who offered water, who whispered it's okay to rest. We'll carry the light now. Claire started a new wall in the center's gallery. For those who carried us, it featured portraits, mentors, animals, lost friends, even strangers who showed up just once and made a difference. Ash's was the first frame. Beneath it, a plaque he stayed, so I could rise. Now we rise so others can stay. Can you feel it? That shift? From being carried to becoming the one who carries? Ash didn't die that night, but something changed. A quiet handoff. A sacred torch passed. And Claire, she accepted it with both hands. Dear Claire, you're probably sitting on that bench right now, cold, soaked, tired of trying, tired of pretending you're not broken. You think no one's coming, that no one sees you, that if you vanished tonight, the world would go on untouched. You're wrong. I'm here, and I see everything. Let me start with this. You survive. I know that doesn't sound like much. It won't warm you tonight. It won't fix what just happened at home. It won't bring back your trust in people. But you need to hear it anyway. You survive. And eventually, you become someone you never dreamed of being. Not because it gets easy, but because you stop waiting for someone to choose you and start choosing yourself. Let me tell you about a dog. You don't know him yet? He'll walk out of the darkness when you're ready to disappear. You'll think he's just a stray, another forgotten soul, like you. But what you won't see at first is that he's exactly what you need, not to rescue you, to remind you what love without condition looks like. He'll stay when everyone else walks away. He'll curl up beside you when you're afraid to sleep. He'll let you fall apart without asking you to explain. And because of him, you'll take your first step back into the world. You'll learn to trust again, slowly, painfully, but real. That night, the one you think is your end, it's your beginning. I know you don't believe that now. I know all you feel is lost. But one day, you'll understand sometimes being lost is the only way to be found. There's going to be a shelter. You'll walk in trembling, heart pounding, expecting rejection. Instead, someone will smile at you. She won't fix your life, but she holds space for it. And that's enough. You'll sleep inside. You'll eat. You'll draw. And slowly, word by word, sketch by sketch, you'll remember you are never empty, just silenced. You're going to say yes to something terrifying. A program, a canvas, a mentor. And you'll mess up. You'll doubt yourself every single day. But you'll keep showing up. That's the secret, by the way. Not talent. Not luck. Consistency. Keep showing up for yourself. Even when your hands shake. Even when your voice cracks. Even when the old voices whisper, you're not enough. Because here's the truth they don't tell girls like us. You are already enough. Even broken. Even bruised. Even in the rain. You're going to speak. On a stage. To strangers. You'll tell them the story you're living right now. The one that feels like a tragedy. And they'll listen. They'll cry. They'll find themselves in your pain. You'll realize something sacred your wounds. They don't disqualify you. They qualify you. You'll build something. From nothing. With no blueprint. No money. Just memory. And a dog. You'll call it the Ash Project. A home for the invisible. A mirror for the forgotten. A bridge for the afraid. And girls, like you will walk through its doors and begin again. Because you did. You'll meet your mother again. She won't have the right words, but you have softness in her eyes. You'll talk. Not to fix. Just to understand. That too will be healing. Ash will get older. He'll slow down. Sleep more. You'll carry him sometimes. The way he once carried you. You'll stay by his side through it all. Because that's what love looks like when it grows up. Not grand gestures, but presence. You'll still be afraid sometimes. But you'll never be powerless again. Because you'll have become your own safe place. And others will follow the light you didn't even know you were shining. So if you're still on that bench, if your hands are still shaking, if you're still thinking about disappearing, don't. Please don't. There's so much waiting for you. Not perfect. Not painless, but worth it. You don't need to have a plan. You just need to take one step. That's it. That's always been enough. And when you forget, because you will just look beside you, see the eyes of the creature who found you when you were ready to give up. And remember, you're not broken. You're becoming. With love from the woman you're about to become, and who owes her life to a dog in the rain. Claire, this letter is not just for her. It's for anyone who ever felt invisible. Unchosen, unloved, you are seen. You are worthy. And your story is not over. And maybe this story wasn't really about a stray dog and a broken girl. Maybe it was about us. All of us who have, at some point, felt discarded, invisible, like we didn't matter. But we do. You do. If you're watching this and feel like your life is stuck, like your past defines your future, like you missed your moment, listen carefully. It's never too late to begin again. Sometimes, the most powerful journeys start at our lowest point. When we stop chasing the life we thought we wanted, and finally say yes to the life we're meant to live. So take the next step, even if it's shaky, even if it's small, even if all you have is a whisper of hope, because that's how healing begins.